Gary, when you played, there was always speculation of you coming back to Scotland. You finally get your move north of the border. How does it feel to be an ambassador for Scottish football?
I'm delighted and also excited. You know, the tie up with Clydesdale Bank and the SPL is very exciting. It comes at a time when, you know, the national team's producing some great results. You know, and there's a genuine buzz when you actually land at Glasgow Airport from south of the border, and things are positive about football again. So any little tie-in is good for me, and I'm really looking forward to the upcoming season.
I think everyone would agree with that. What do you think was the catalyst? Was it the national team? Was it for instance, Celtic and Rangers' performances in Europe? What do you think the catalyst was? I
think it's a whole mixture of everything. But I think the mainstay is probably what Walter did after the reign of Bertie Vogts, where it was dismal coming back up here. I've got to say that. It just didn't work for Bertie Vogts, and the arrival of Walter Smith, Tommy Burns, and Ali McAllister in the national team. It just boosted the feel good factor. You know, and it's definitely come back, and then allied with Gordon's results in the Champions League this year, I thought Celtic did fantastically well. You know, there's some heroic performances. So all of a sudden, you know, from my perspective, south of the border, there's a wee bit more respect for the game back north of the border. So I'm pleased to tie up with it again.
And do you think performances like the performance against France by the national team has been a main cause in a lot of those players now getting moves into the Premiership, whereas before?
I've got to agree with you. I think so. You know, the fact is that people are starting to sit up and take notice, because, you know, it's been I would say it's 10, 12 years that English clubs have been very reluctant to send scouts even to come and watch games up here. But now all of a sudden we've got 3-4 players going into the Premiership. But also the fact that people are doing well with the national team, they've earned themselves moves to the Old Firm, which I think is good. And it also proves that, you know, when you're playing the teams out with the Old Firm, you can push into the national team and get yourself a more credibility.
Does that maybe prove as well that in the last 10 years that the talent was always there?
Yeah, and it's been given an opportunity to grow, because I think that there's been a downscaling of wages at clubs, which has enabled the youngsters from these clubs' academies to get closer to the first team. You know, and they've been given a chance. You know, noticing throughout the Premiership the SPL last year, there was so many players under 20, 22, 21 getting a chance in the first team, whereas 5-10 years ago they weren't getting a chance because of cheap foreign imports. So it's nice now that the Scottish players are getting a chance.
Which of the Scotland internationals at the moment do you think are the ones that are going to be there for the next 10 years and going to be the stars of the future?
Well, you know, I was fortunate enough under Walter's reign to be invited up to the Ukraine. I went up and trained with the lads for 2 or 3 days, and I was very impressed right across the board. You know, Scott Brown caught the eye, Whittaker caught the eye, Russell Anderson. It was surprising, you know, because, you know, you sometimes get caught up in all this negativity when you're south of the border and saying that there's a dearth of quality north up in Scotland now, and we don't have players coming into England. But, you know, those 2-3 days really opened my eyes, and I suppose when I was approached by Clydesdale Bank, that was one of the things that I thought of. You know, getting back in and around the Scottish game, getting involved in it, you know, is all nice and healthy.
Yeah, Scotland goalkeepers in the past sort of few decades have always been got the mickey taken out of them. Yeah, but Craig Gordon nowadays, you think he's due a big move?
Absolutely, you know, and he was very impressive, you know. But, you know, I played in a generation with 2 magnificent goalkeepers. Andy Gorham and Jim Leighton were second to none. And if Craig Gordon can emulate either of those 2 guys, he'll have done really well, because they were as good as I ever seen.
What did you make of the SPL last season? Most people up here would agree it probably wasn't the most competitive league in the world. Mm-hmm.
Well, the way it ended, you know, and I think, you know, knowing Gordon very well, I think he was a wee bit disappointed the way Celtic's season, because they just about won it after, you know, going into the new year, and Celtic sort of tailed away, and he was a bit disappointed the way it, because it's hard to motivate players when they know they've got it in the bag. So I think it'll be a wee bit different this year. I think and Walter and Coyste's short time back at Ibrox, they've proved that they're going to run Celtic very close. But there is a big gap, you know, and then to catch up with Celtic in the one season will be a magnificent feat with the 2 new guys at Ibrox. But there's most definitely this season it'll be a lot tighter, and I can see the 2 Edinburgh sides being very competitive. But the one that's caught my eye is Aberdeen. You know, they're nice resurgence coming back from the side up there. You know, and it all bodes well when you've got 4, 5, 6 teams that are competitive, and then the guys below there. You know, Falkirk, Motherwell, my old club. You know, they just want to remain competitive, and they'll be trying very hard to stay in the league.
Walter Smith, as you said, had the magic touch when he came back and when he was a national manager. Do you think he's got that touch and he could actually get the title off Celtic and back to Rangers this season?
Well, you can't rule it out. You know, but there's still quite a bit behind Glasgow Celtic at the moment. You know, and I think Walter will be the first to admit it's a big gap to overturn in one season. But they've made some interesting signings. You know, Gordon's went in and spent some serious money with his signings, but Walter's made some experienced signings, and it's going to be close. It's going to be closer. There's no doubt about that. Whether he can go and topple Gordon, I don't know. We just need to see how it pans out.
Certainly in the west of Scotland, there seems to be a sort of a reversal in terms of the budgets. It used to be maybe 10 years ago. Celtic were the ones that didn't have much to spend, and Rangers were the ones splashing the cash. It seems to have changed now.
Well, I think we dominance in the transfer market and dominance in actually winning titles comes in cycles. You know, and we're in a Celtic period at the moment. You know, I can remember the great Celtic side won 9 in a row, and then I'm playing in a game in July with the Rangers against the Rangers 9 in a row side. So it comes in cycles. You know, I think once there's an acceptance that Rangers are going to, bridge that gap this season, David Murray might find some cash. Just
a couple more questions, Gary. The Motherwell situation, was that something that really could have seen you coming back up here?
Well, I say yes because I went and met. I'd informal talks with John, you know, and it was very humbling to be asked along to be even considered for the Motherwell job, you know. And it is my old club, and I was thinking about coming back and bringing something back to my old club. But we chatted and with a long meeting, and I just didn't. I felt in my gut that it just wasn't the right move at this moment in time. But there's some positive things going on at Fir Park, you know, and I wish them well.
And just finally, in the last couple of seasons, both Celtic and Rangers have got into the final 16 of the Champions League. Do you think, realistically, that's as far as they can expect to go, bearing in mind the budgets and the country that they play in?
Well, first and foremost, to get to the final 16 of the Champions is no mean feat. You know, there's something. You know, I watch a lot of Champions League football, and to get into that final 16, you've got to go some, because there's some fantastic technicians and some fantastic players throughout Europe. You know, and once you get in that 16, you never know what can happen. You know, but the facts are, if you get through those group stages, you've done really well. You know, and to say that's as far as they can go, you don't know, because over 2 games and it becomes knockout, anything can happen. You know, and you know what it's like. You know, the atmosphere at Celtic Park and at Ibrox is not matched in many places across Europe. So, you know, if and when they qualify for that final 16 and they get a positive result away from their home park, bringing them back to their home ground is a big advantage.
And just finally, am I right in thinking that if a manager's job came up in Scotland, you'd be interested?
Well, as I say, the thing is, it's something. You know, I love football. It's all I know. I don't know anything else. And it's just waiting for that right opportunity where you can become really, you know, go to a club where you're really competitive.